when the narcissist finally realizes you were the one they should have never lost. Many people underestimate how deeply narcissists remain psychologically entangled with their former sources of supply. The truth is far more complex. Even if they walk away, even if they smear you, even if they pretend you never mattered, psychologists emphasize that narcissists rarely let go emotionally. Instead, they store people as psychological objects. And yes, this includes you. You may have been an empath, intuitive, emotionally aware, someone who loved with depth and consciousness. Yet in their presence, your worth was never acknowledged. Not because you were unworthy, but because, as many psychologists explain, narcissists are neurologically and emotionally incapable of truly valuing intimacy. Look around, even outside narcissistic dynamics, people often cling to a ghost from their past. A lost love, a missed connection, someone who shaped their emotional story. But for narcissists, this fixation takes a darker form. Instead of grieving or integrating the emotional loss, they drown themselves in superficial affection from strangers, followers, and temporary attachments. They believe deep down that distraction can erase emotional discomfort. But research in trauma psychology shows unresolved attachment wounds never disappear. They simply resurface later, stronger, and more chaotic. Many survivors tell me, the narcissist doesn't care. They seem fine. But what you're witnessing is not healing, it's masking. When the mask slips and you see their rage, emptiness, or panic, that is the closest glimpse of their true emotional reality. They may flee before apologizing or acknowledging the damage. They may vanish without explanation. They may ghost you, discard you, or abandon the relationship without closure. Psychologists note that confrontation terrifies narcissists, because confrontation threatens the fragile illusion they work relentlessly to protect. They fear your clarity, your insight, your ability to name what they are. Your truth becomes a mirror, and they cannot bear to face it. So instead of facing you, they run. But running from truth doesn't erase it. Modern dating culture only amplifies the problem. With instant access to new partners, narcissists use one person to bury the pain of losing another, never resolving grief, guilt, or regret. But unresolved emotions don't simply disappear. They compound. Over time, the narcissist begins to notice the emotional comfort you once provided, the stability, the empathy, the patience. Psychology calls this delayed emotional processing. The narcissist does not feel the loss immediately. They feel it slowly, painfully, when the new supply fails to meet the impossible standard you unknowingly set. And here is the truth many survivors need to hear. When they met you, they were still entangled with someone else emotionally. You were not chosen because they valued you, you were chosen because you could numb them. You became the emotional anesthetic for pain they refused to acknowledge. Not because they loved deeply, but because they needed supply desperately. Later, after the cycle repeats, after new relationships collapse, after the chaos becomes unbearable, they finally recognize your impact. Not because they evolved, but because no one else gives them the emotional equilibrium you once did. Psychologists refer to this as the benchmark phenomenon. You become the standard, the comparison, the person they measure others against, even when they would rather die than admit it. This is why survivors must understand. They look back, they remember, they reflect, not as a healed person would, but through the fragmented lens of ego and regret. This realization shouldn't flatter you, it should empower you. It reveals your emotional power and your significance, not to them, but to yourself. This is what many trauma specialists call the knowing, that intuitive understanding that your energy changes people, even damaged ones. But narcissists carry what psychologists describe as the grass is greener syndrome. They chase novelty, convinced the next person will finally give them peace, validation, and admiration. Yet every new relationship reminds them of the comfort, the depth, and the emotional safety you once provided. Just as you may still think of them even after understanding the abuse, so do they think of you. The difference is, you are healing, they are looping. You confront your pain, they avoid theirs. And this is why the mask eventually cracks. Because at some point, they can no longer outrun the memory of who you were and what you saw behind their facade. You witnessed the darkness beneath the charm. You felt the emotional emptiness. You saw the coldness in their eyes when the mask slipped. You recognized the truth long before they ever could. When the relationship finally dissolves, whether through abandonment, ghosting, or a cold, silent discard, you're thrust into an emotional landscape that feels impossible to navigate. Psychologists often describe this as post-narcissistic shock, where the brain struggles to reconcile the contradiction between the love you believed was real and the cruelty that followed. Meanwhile, the narcissist walks away appearing detached, elevated, unaffected. But that mask you once saw slip is still slipping, just not in front of you. Many survivors assume the narcissist immediately thrives in their new reality. But research in personality disorders shows that narcissists do not process emotional loss in real time. Instead, their emotional processing is delayed, distorted, and dependent on external validation. They enter new relationships not because they've healed, but because they're avoiding the emotional void they fear will consume them if they ever stop moving. While the empath experiences pain and reflection, the narcissist seeks distraction and control. This difference is crucial because one leads to growth, while the other leads to repetition. When the dust starts to settle and the adrenaline of their new supply begins to fade, something deeply unsettling happens within the narcissist. They begin to compare not with logic but with emotional memory. And because empaths give connection, loyalty, emotional safety, and depth, psychologists say that survivors often become what is called the emotional benchmark in the narcissist's fragmented internal world. They may not name it, they may not admit it, but they feel it. This is why, as months pass, you begin to stand out, not just as someone they knew, but as someone irreplaceable. Narcissists don't bond, they attach. They attach to usefulness, to comfort, to what psychologists call narcissistic supply. You were their stability. You were the calm to their internal chaos. And because they never healed the wounds from their past, they unknowingly repeated the cycle with you, using you to silence the ghosts of the person before you. But what the narcissist fails to understand, until much later, is that relationships rooted in avoidance cannot create joy. They can only create stimulation, and stimulation burns out. This is why you continue to linger in their psyche, not as a regret born from accountability, but as a loss born from entitlement. You were supposed to stay. You were supposed to tolerate. You were supposed to absorb the emotional storms they refused to face. Psychologists describe this mindset as pathological entitlement, the belief that others exist to serve the narcissist's emotional regulation. So when they walk away, they believe they're upgrading. They're convinced better lies ahead, that happiness will magically appear in the form of a new partner, new admiration, new fantasy. But eventually, the fantasy collapses. And when the illusion dissolves, something else emerges. Regret. Not the healthy kind that brings growth, but the selfish kind that whispers, "I should have kept access to you." It's during that phase that they experience what trauma psychologists call identity destabilization. Reality contradicts their grandiosity. Life does not improve. The new supply does not worship the way you did. The attention becomes harder to maintain. The admiration becomes inconsistent. And suddenly, happiness, the thing they chase through bodies, conversations, attention, chaos, remains out of reach. Meanwhile, you evolve. Slowly, quietly, but consistently, you begin reconnecting with yourself, rediscovering hobbies, rebuilding boundaries, nurturing your nervous system, and reclaiming your self-worth. You cultivate gratitude, something narcissists cannot access because gratitude requires vulnerability, humility, and presence. These qualities are foreign to them but natural to you. This is why, long after the discard, the narcissist realizes they did not simply lose a person. They lost stability, empathy, nourishing intimacy, and emotional grounding. They realized they traded something meaningful for something temporary. And in that realization, bitterness grows. Not toward themselves, but toward life, circumstances, and anyone convenient enough to blame. Because accountability is a door they refuse to walk through. And so the cycle continues for them. But not for you. Because you, through pain, awakening, and knowledge, step into a chapter they will never access. Healing, clarity, and emotional freedom. And that is where your power lives, not in whether they regret leaving you, but in the fact that you no longer need them to.